This person is dying from stress right now because you don't know the truth about your 2. My beloved child, listen with your whole heart because the next breath you take can shift the path of your life forever. A pulse is racing in a dim room and a pair of trembling hands keep reaching for a phone that never rings. Someone who carries your name in their chest like fire is breaking under the weight of a truth you still do not hold. The clock on their wall moves like thunder inside a glass cage and their shoulders are heavy with silence. They kept the world from crashing into you by standing in its way with bones and will. The cost is now written in the lines around their eyes and the ache in their ribs. You feel the storm moving through your own spirit as if a window just opened in a room that had no air before. Your memory starts dragging back little details that never made sense and now glow with meaning. The late-night messages that stopped mid-typing carry a hidden message like a heartbeat in static. There is a sealed envelope in a place you pass without seeing and its presence calls your name without sound. A key waits in the pocket of a jacket you have never worn and it fits a lock you always ignored. The lock guards a history that belongs to you more than the air you breathe. The person who suffers holds the end of a long chain of choices that were made to shield you from a storm meant to shatter you. They stood between you and a shadow with no face and they took every blow in silence. The shadow was a contract, a scheme, a lie someone wrapped around your life like wire. You have always wondered why certain doors opened and others stayed closed no matter how hard you knocked. Paths were curated for you by a hand that asked for nothing in return because love sometimes hides in the hallway like a quiet guard. That guard is exhausted and the silence is crushing their chest. Your name was written beside an inheritance of peace that others tried to steal through confusion. Those others smiled in your face while twisting words behind your back into knots around your progress. The one who protects you pulled at those knots until their fingers bled and still held fast. In a drawer wrapped in faded cloth lies a black-bound notebook with dates and amounts and names. Every line is a step taken to keep your future intact while the past tried to swallow it. The pages smell of nights spent awake and mornings that came too soon. The person who weeps in secret is not weak because tears are just the overflow of a dam that saved a town. Their strength has been the scaffolding under your steps for longer than you knew. They whispered prayers over your pillow when the world forgot your address. Sometimes you felt a surge of protection when you needed it most and you thought it was luck. It was never luck because luck does not move like a shield or stand like a wall. It was a living heart deciding again and again to hold your name above water. You are now being guided to notice the lights you always walked past without seeing. The bulb in your hallway flickered not because it was broken but because meaning pressed on your attention. Tonight is about alignment and the truth that has waited for permission to arrive. There is a silver ring hidden in a teacup at the back of a cupboard that does not hold tea. The initials carved inside are a map to a promise made long ago in a kitchen that haunted your dreams without a face. The promise was simple and heavy like a stone in a pocket. The stress that is eating this person from the inside makes time feel like a wolf in the room. Their pulse taps on the window and the window does not answer, and the whole house feels like it is listening. They count your breaths from far away and anchor them with their own. You cannot see the sleepless hours at the edge of their bed, but the sheets remember the shape of worry. They learned how to breathe through panic so that you would not inherit panic like a family heirloom. They collected every sharp word said about you and buried it where it could not reach you. You step into the corridor of memory and suddenly the floor keeps a rhythm you did not hear before. In that rhythm lives the sound of a message recorded and deleted 100 times. The words were too heavy to carry through a line made of glass. On their desk, beneath a stack of receipts, sits a photo with the corners curled like leaves in winter. In the photo, your smile is a flare in a dark field, and behind you a figure is half turned away. That half-turned figure has been your shelter longer than you have been alive. When your days felt clogged with fog, a hand you never noticed continued lighting small lanterns ahead. Every lantern was a chance you thought arrived by accident. You were led without knowing you were being led, and that is why today feels like thunder. There is a safe deposit box whose number matches the date you always find repeating around you. The number shows up on license plates and receipts and broken digital clocks, and you called it coincidence. Coincidence is often just a message with a veil on. Within that box is the written confession of a sacrifice that carried your life across a broken bridge. It documents debts paid in silence and doors opened with favors that cost years. It shows a timeline of battles fought with smiles so that you could smile for real. The person who hurts from stress knows that truth has pressure like deep water and that it must surface now. Their body is flagging because the mind cannot keep carrying what the soul wants to release. Their heartbeat is a drum calling you to the center of your own story. Your spirit has been waking at night because a thread is tugging at the seam of your reality. You feel the tug like a name being called from a shore you cannot see. That shore is where the truth waits with its feet in the water. A suitcase under a bed contains a coat with a stitched message beneath the inner pocket. The message is not poetic and it does not rhyme, and that is how you know it is real. It says you were always meant to stand in the open without fear. No one is coming to steal your light anymore because the door is about to be locked from the inside. The key is in your hand even if you cannot feel it yet, because sometimes keys begin as decisions. You decide to look and the lock begins to recognize you. A neighbor pretended to protect your path while quietly mapping your steps for their benefit. Their map is full of errors because love kept changing your route without telling them. Those changes kept you safe, and that safety lived inside the person who now shakes. You owe no apologies for not knowing because you were not supposed to carry that weight then. The time to carry the truth is now, and now is a doorway that does not close on your hands. You step through with the calm that rises when fear loses its argument. The person who aches when you laugh is the same person who held your laughter together when it was brittle. They have a letter with your name on it written in the color of a sunrise. The letter is not long because truth seldom needs many words. When you touch the letter with clean hands, you will feel heat like a memory finding its home. You will understand why certain faces always felt familiar even when you could not place them. Family is not always blood, and blood is not always family, but love keeps lists longer than both. Your timeline bends without breaking as you gather every fragment you left in different rooms. The rooms do not vanish because rooms do not vanish when a person finally sees them. They line up in order and the thread runs through like a river that refused to dry. The stress that threatens this person eases when light touches the right corner of the story. Light always knows where to land because it listens to the architecture of pain. The moment you allow light in, the walls remember why they were built. In a phone that rarely rings, there is a voicemail saved under a name that looks wrong. The voice in that message steadies its tone so you will not hear a tremor. Love often rehearses courage before it speaks. You will not need to argue with anyone because truth has its own gravity. When it arrives, things fall into place as naturally as rain becoming rivers. The map becomes clear and the destination stops hiding. The person who weakens at dawn will sit up straighter when you show them you have finally seen. Their breath will ease and the knot beneath their collarbone will loosen. Their eyes will search your face and find the answer they hoped for without asking. You carry resilience like a lantern now, and that lantern knows the way. You know which names no longer belong in your house and which names have always been carved into your doorway. You know which doors require knocking and which doors were built for you to walk through. There is a bank of clouds ahead that looked like a wall all year but now looks like steps. You climb like someone who remembers why feet were made. Each step is a yes spoken from the center of your chest. You gather the pages of that black-bound notebook and press them against your heart for a moment. The pages stop trembling because recognition calms paper the same way it calms people. You place the notebook in a safe place because stories deserve rest after long journeys. The person who broke under stress will feel warmth uncoil through their ribs as if spring entered the body. They will sleep without armor for the first time in years because you are awake. Your awareness becomes their medicine and it works because it is honest. You return the silver ring to the light and let it catch the day. The initials inside no longer confuse you because names hidden for protection are still names. You promise to honor those names by living without hiding. Your spirit steadies like a ship finally seeing the lighthouse built for it. You taste relief in the back of your throat and it tastes like rain after heat. Relief is not an apology because nothing is owed for surviving. From this hour forward, the truth walks beside you like a friend with gentle hands. Plans will bloom under your feet because the ground is no longer stealing your roots. You feel permission enter the room and sit down and refuse to leave. You choose care for the body that carried you through storm without applause. You hydrate and you rest and you organize the small corners that whisper your name. You become the environment you always wanted to live in. The person who nearly broke will begin to hum when they wash their hands. They will place fresh flowers in a cup and call it a vase because today makes everything worthy. They will stand by the window and let the sun find every place the stress tried to claim. You look out at the road and it does not threaten you anymore. The road understands that you are not running but arriving. Arriving feels like a yes that ends nothing and begins everything. Your home holds the truth the way palms hold warm stones from the river. Every object seems to exhale because secrets take too much oxygen. This is how rooms become holy without ceremony. You are not late because love keeps time differently from clocks. Love stores moments until they can be opened without breaking what is inside. Today is a perfect container and it will hold. The person who almost drowned in worry will not drown because you learned how to swim toward them. You arrive with light and light behaves like a rope in water. Together you rise and the water releases its claim. You build new boundaries that feel like clear glass rather than barbed wire. Clear glass lets light through and still defines what is yours. People who cannot honor glass cannot enter your garden. Your work becomes focus rather than frenzy, and your calling hums like an engine built for distance. The engine greets the road with gratitude because it has waited for this partnership. Momentum bows to intention and follows it. The future no longer strains your neck because it has come to stand beside you. It puts a hand on your shoulder, and the hand is familiar. Familiarity means you were always meant to meet here. You bless the steps behind you because they did their job until you learn to walk. Steps do not resent the feet they carried. They are proud when you run. You breathe, and the breath is simple and full and unremarkable in the best way. You let your shoulders lower and your jaw soften, and your heart take the space it deserves. You invite peace to make a home in your calendar. The person who almost faded smiles in a way that rewrites the room. That smile confirms the transfer of weight from a single set of shoulders to two. Two is lighter, and lighter is sustainable. You open the window because fresh air is a decision before it is a breeze. The curtains lift like a quiet cheer for your courage. Courage becomes culture in your house, and everything grows under it. The truth now lives where silence once sat, and it keeps the door open. Open doors invite rightful things and keep thieves uncomfortable. Thieves do not thrive in daylight. You rest without guilt because rest is not a reward but a requirement. It is the ground where clarity grows, and clarity is your new normal. Normal can be sacred when it is chosen. You mark today as the day the story turned toward light with both hands. You hold this day without squeezing it because good days breathe. Breathing days create breathing lives. You will find notes of gratitude in places you forgot you owned. Gratitude writes on napkins and receipts and the edges of calendars. It tells you the same thing in 100 different ways, and every way feels new. The person who feared silence now hears music in it. They sit in a chair and it fits like a memory of home. That is how safety feels when it finally arrives. Your steps from here are guided by knowing rather than guessing. Knowing is kindness to the nervous system and generosity to the future. The future responds by unfolding without bribes. You are held, and you are ready, and you are seen. The truth is with you, and the stress has lost its teeth. Love did not fail, and the proof is breathing in the next room. You stand at the window with the sun on your hands, and you understand why your name felt heavy. It was carrying a crown you had not claimed yet. You lift it and it fits. Your heart sends a message to every room the stress tried to claim and asks them to return to you. The rooms walk back quietly with soft eyes and no demands. They bring chairs for rest and tables for joy. You accept the letter, the ring, the notebook, and the key not as burdens but as witnesses. Witnesses ensure that the truth remains true. The truth does not need defense when it is held with grace. From this moment, the person who almost broke can begin to rebuild. The rebuild is slow and beautiful and honest. Honesty makes structures that last. Your life moves forward like a river that found its bed again after a season of stone. The water sounds like relief, and relief sounds like home. Home feels like a promise finally kept. You are not alone because you were never alone. The proof stands in front of you and breathes easier now. Your yes traveled farther than words and reached the place it needed to reach. The door you just opened will not close because it was never meant to close on you. Doors built for you learn your hands and respond to your presence. Presence is your power now, and it is gentle and unstoppable. Every step from here carries the message that you finally know. You live with that knowledge like a candle that does not burn you. It lights the path and warms the air. The person who suffered for your peace starts to heal under the same light that found you. Healing becomes a practice rather than a performance. Practices outlast performances, and this is how legacies begin. Today is the start of a softer chapter written in bold ink. Bold ink does not shout because it does not need to. It simply stands where it belongs and shines. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. The morning after the truth settled, the house felt different in a way you could taste. The walls no longer pressed inward like a clenched fist, and the air moved with a soft, almost patient rhythm. You walked barefoot across the floor and it greeted you as if it had been waiting. You put the black-bound notebook on the table where sunlight could rest on it. The ink looked calmer, as if the letters themselves were relieved to be seen. Paper has a pulse when it finally belongs to the person it serves. The ring glimmered beside a glass of water, and the initials were no longer a riddle. Names that hid for safety were now honored for service, and honor has a stabilizing weight. You let that weight anchor your breath into a steady tide. The person who carried the storm for you slept long for the first time and woke with a different face. The tightness around their mouth eased as if a knot had been carefully untied. They sat up and the room recognized their return. You brewed tea and the sound of boiling water felt ceremonial without any performance. Healing often begins with small sounds repeating until the nervous system believes them. The kettle sang and the house listened. You both stood at the window and watched the street like it had a story to tell. The street was the same, but your eyes were not, and new eyes change old places. A gentle certainty took the place where fear used to sit. You decided to visit the safe deposit box with quiet resolve. The number that chased you through clocks and receipts finally welcomed you like a doorway. Doors appreciate steady hands that do not shake from doubt. Inside the bank, the fluorescent lights hummed a reliable song, and reliability felt like mercy. The box slid out with a metallic whisper, and the whisper sounded like yes. You lifted the lid and the past unfolded without force. There were receipts of debts paid and letters confirming agreements that protected your path. There were copies of contracts rewritten so your name would breathe in wider spaces. The paper trail felt like a bridge that had always been under your feet. You placed everything into a folder, not to hide it, but to hold it with respect. Respect is an antidote to the chaos that secrecy breeds. Order took your hand and walked beside you like an old friend. On the way out, the day brightened without asking for permission. Sunlight landed on your shoulders like an acknowledgement of distance traveled. You did not need to hurry because arriving does not rush. Back home, you cleared a small desk and made a sanctuary for truth. The folder, the notebook, the ring, and a pen became your first altar to clarity. Clarity likes practical altars built of simple, durable things. You called the necessary offices with a voice that no longer trembled. Words that once stuck in your throat flowed with the precision of a river that knows its bed. Even the hold music could not shake your focus. You drew boundaries on paper and then brought them to life in rooms and routines. Boundaries felt like windows that open and close with intention, letting light in while keeping harm out. People who respect light learn to respect glass. The neighbor who mapped your steps appeared smaller under daylight. Their plans thinned out like fog meeting noon. You did not need revenge because the truth performed its own correction. You returned a few borrowed pieces of your energy to yourself. The minute hand noticed the change and began to serve you rather than chase you. Time makes different offers to people who are grounded. You cooked a simple meal and every ingredient tasted like relief. Relief does not need spice to prove itself. It settles into the body and changes the temperature of thought. The person who nearly broke from stress took 3 slow breaths and each one stitched a seam inside their chest. They reached for your hand without shaking, and touch became conversation. Conversation replaced the old language of silence. You set a small schedule that honored both rest and motion. Rest held you like a chair that fits, and motion greeted you like a path that remembers your stride. This is how a life begins to cooperate with itself. You opened the windows and let the rooms trade stories with the breeze. The curtains learned the choreography of ease and practiced it with grace. Ease is contagious when it is sincere. You found a photograph and placed it in a new frame that did not apologize for its brightness. The half-turned figure in the background no longer looked away. They faced you with the quiet triumph of someone who made it through. You chose new handles for old drawers because small upgrades teach the body to believe in change. Each handle turned without squeaking, and silence arrived where friction used to live. Evenwood responds to care like a grateful student. A list of names formed in your mind, names that deserve distance and names that deserve closeness. Distance is not punishment when it protects what is tender. Closeness is not pressure when it honors what is true. You declined an invitation that smelled like old anguish wearing perfume. Declining can be an act of devotion when it keeps the heart honest. Your calendar looked stronger for saying no. You stepped onto the porch in the evening and watched the horizon soften. Soft edges taught your nervous system a new alphabet. The letters spelled calm and calm spelled home. You wrote a note to yourself and tucked it under the ring for safekeeping. The note promised consistency rather than perfection. Consistency builds houses that weather every season. The person who almost drowned in worry placed flowers in a jar and called them beautiful without hesitation. Beauty arrived without ceremony and sat down like a rightful guest. Rightful guests know how to clean up after themselves. You organized the drawer with the sealed envelope and moved it into the light. Things that belong to you behave better when they can see you. The envelope did not need to hide anymore because its job was done. A gentle accountability formed between you and the morning. Morning offered you a rhythm and you offered it presence. Presence is the currency that actually pays the bill for change. You watered a plant that had struggled and watched its leaves lift. The lift mirrored something in your chest that had been waiting. Bodies speak the language of plants when they are safe. You adjusted the picture on the wall until it sat level. Balance introduced itself through small angles first. Later, it entered your voice and stayed. You chose a lamp with a warmer bulb for the room where the truth now rests. Warmth changes how corners behave. Corners stopped pretending to be threats and became pages turning. The bank called to confirm your updates and the paperwork matched your new steadiness. Signatures looked like declarations rather than scribbles. Declaration is what a steady hand does to paper. You returned to the desk and opened the notebook to the last entry. The handwriting softened near the end as if the writer was setting down a weight. You added a new page that began with gratitude and continued with direction. You made a promise aloud to tend the life that love protected. Promises spoken with clean breath have their own architecture. Architecture holds when storms test it. The neighbor's map crumbled where it had been taped and retaped with old glue. Glue expires when it tries to hold what was never theirs. The pieces drifted like confetti that will never be thrown. You took a slow walk to the corner and back, letting your feet memorize safety. Safety has a cadence that returns to the body in gentle waves. Each step taught the next one how to behave. The person who once lived on the edge of collapse now laughed without flinching. Laughter touched the ceiling and returned as light. Light made patterns on the floor and the patterns felt like blessings. You wrote a short letter to the future and sealed it with intention. Intention is a solvent for the residues of fear. Fear lost its stickiness and slid off the walls. You placed the ring on a small dish at night and let it rest like a sentinel off duty. Even sentinels need sleep when the city is secure. The city of your life felt secure. You washed the teacup and let it dry in open air where it could see the sky. Sky is a reminder that ceilings are choices. You choose a ceiling you can lift with your hands. You made a playlist that your heart recognized as a blueprint. Sound entered the rooms like scaffolding. L for joy. Joy began assembling itself without instructions. The clock on the wall still ticked, but it no longer sounded like thunder. It marked time like a friend gently tapping your shoulder. You learned to smile back at minutes. At dusk, you lit a candle and the flame stood tall without hesitation. Fire respects people who no longer hide from themselves. The wick burned clean and the glass stayed clear. You drafted a simple will, not from fear, but from love for order. Order is a kindness to those who love us. Kindness makes legacies that travel farther than noise. The person who once shook from worry folded blankets with unhurried hands. Fabric remembered softness and the room remembered lullabies. Night approached like a guest who finally knows your name. You opened a window in the hallway where light rarely entered and the corridor breathed. Air tasted newly minted and carried a quiet courage. Courage walked with you from room to room. You kept the folder in a safe place and the safe place in a known place. Known places relax the mind and let the body dream. Dreams return when they are invited and believed. You slept unguarded and woke refreshed, and the morning took notes. The notes will build a rhythm you can keep without strain. Rhythm makes progress feel like music instead of labor. Your voice on the phone warmed the ears it reached because it carried no hidden edge. Edges soften when they do not need to cut. You became a place where words could land. You sealed the day with a quiet contentment that did not need an audience. Contentment is not a performance and it does not ask for applause. It simply rests where it belongs. The person who once counted seconds now counts blessings without counting at all. Some math lives beyond numbers and still organizes the world. This is that kind of math and it will hold. You ended the evening by thanking the path under your feet. Paths respond to gratitude by showing you the next turn without fog. The next turn is ready and so are you. You closed your eyes knowing the truth now sleeps inside the house rather than outside it. Houses sleep better when their secrets are retired. Sleep entered with authority and stayed. You will rise into the next chapter with a body that believes you. Belief is a medicine the cells understand. Your cells hum a low song of alignment. Tomorrow will not be loud, but it will be unmistakable. Unmistakable days stack into a life that cannot be confused for anything else. This is the life you chose when you chose to see. You will keep returning to simple actions that reinforce the new shape of your joy. Joy wears well when tailored to your exact measurements. You have been measured by love and it fits. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20.